For those of you that love talking about animals, from Sci News, Llallawavis Scagliai, new terror bird discovered in Argentina. A group of paleontologists has described a new genus and species of forest raccoonide that lived in what is now Argentina during the Pliocene epoch around 3.5 million years ago. And now, from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. Welcome to Creature Guide Live Prehistoric News. Hit that subscribe button so we can dive right back into the prehistoric news of the day. So this is good to hear. This is referring to a group of terror birds that existed during the Cenozoic era, first evolving around 44 million years ago during the late Eocene epoch, and then mysteriously going extinct around 11,000 years ago at the very end of the Pleistocene. So let's take a look. Forest raccoonide, the so-called terror birds, were a group of extinct terrestrial carnivorous birds that are known mainly from the Cenozoic era of South America, but also from the Plio-Pleistocene of North America and the Eocene of Africa. So what it's referring to as the Plio-Pleistocene is the Pliocene epoch to the Pleistocene epoch. So basically, from around 7 million years ago to around 11,000 years ago in North America, and then in Africa, around 42 million years ago. These birds had a very large body mass, up to 70 kilograms, or what is that? Somewhere around 150, 160 pounds, and were zero point 0.9 to 2 meters in height. So I guess that's somewhere around 2 foot 11 to 6.5 feet or 6.6 feet. That was with shorter terror birds. There were some that became much taller in height. And when it comes to the weight, these are it's referring to the lighter terror birds. There were some that could reach over 400 pounds. They were the predominant predators during the Cenozoic and certainly one of the most striking groups that lived during that period. The new species, named the Scaglia's magnificent bird, is the most complete terror bird ever discovered, with almost 100% of the skeleton exquisitely preserved. Well, this is really good to hear. Most skeletons, when it comes to the prehistoric animals in general, are not usually complete. So this is good to see. Let's take a look at another creature. So, this animal inhabited both Europe, Asia, and North America during the late Pliocene to the very early Pleistocene epoch. And this is Megantrian, which is a member of the macrodontid lineage of saber-toothed cats, as well as more specifically, the Smilodonti lineage. So, the same family of cats that Smilodon belongs to. And this animal was about the size of a large jaguar today, so pushing somewhere between 300 to 340 pounds, or a little over 160 kilograms. And this animal, depending on the population, could have ranged from certain individuals over in North America being around 170 pounds to megantrian individuals over in France reaching over 260 pounds. Now, this animal also had a very similar skull that's somewhat closely built or similarly built to Smilodon. Therefore, this animal had a bite force of somewhere around 66 pounds per square inch, but it's really only relying on its canines to sever the major organs of the throat where it's biting on the animal, just like Smilodon would. Smilodon wasn't much better, reaching about 120 pounds per square inch, but this is also coming from a cat that weighs somewhere around 2 to 300 pounds more. And Megantrian had a skull about half the size of Smilodon's. On an earlier video, I think I said a third of the size. That's a bit exaggerating. But this individual, yes, there's a giraffe in the background. There have been certain Megantrian individuals found in more northeastern Africa. So it's very likely it was surviving with older giraffe species, but likely not one that resembled today's giraffes. Probably a much stockier sort of species. So, Megantrian would eventually go extinct somewhere around 2.5 to 3 million years ago. So, right before the Pliocene epoch ended. Probably also feeding on smaller species of animals. So, early relatives of today's kudu, which is the um, third largest antelope in Africa, if you're including both eland subspecies, as well as just other gazelle within the region. So let's head back to the article. The scientific name of the bird is Llallawavis scagliai. Lallawa meaning or means magnificent in the Quechua language in reference to the nature of the terror bird's remains, and avis means bird. The species name honors Galileo Juan Scagliai, 1915 to 1989, naturalist and director of the Museo Municipal de Ciencias Naturales Lorenzo Scagliai in Buenos Argentina,
That
during
is far too long of a name.
1940 to 1980. Um, oh, he was okay director for about 40 years. Whoa, is this a skeleton? Wow, that's no way. Gosh, that is perfect. That's great. This animal was covered so delicately in sediment when it died that this is yeah, quite magnificent.
Is that an arm?
Um yeah, it very likely could be. Terrorbirds had very small arms compared to their body size. Certain ones they were a bit larger than others, but it's really a big question as to what those arms would have been used for. So let's head back to the article. Llallawavis scagliae is a medium-sized terror bird with an estimated body mass of 18 kilograms. So that's pushing somewhere around 40 pounds. And estimated height of 1.2 meters. I'm guessing that's like 3'7", 3'8". This is a smaller terror bird. I wouldn't even consider this medium size, especially a 20-pound individual. It's not even close to the much larger species such as Kalenkin, Titanus. There's even taller individual. The terror birds could range from like less than 2 feet in height to over 10 feet. And the larger species were hunting different species of horses. They might have even been going after different species of gazelle, maybe even younger um, relatives of the elephants. So it really did vary depending on the species. Now let's take a look at another creature. So this is a less known family or less talked about family of proboscideans or elephants. This is a member of the Gomphothere family called Anankus. And Anankus has been found over in different parts of Europe as well as Asia and Africa. Now, this individual could reach somewhere around um, probably 6 to 7 feet in height.
Who are we looking at here?
Oh, okay. So here, this is supposed to take place in Italy, considering the Anankus Gomphothere has been discovered in Italy, as well as Ethiopia, South Africa, India, and so on the bottom left is actually a Ceratotherium. And what I mean by that is it's basically a white rhino hanging out at the very end of the Pliocene epoch or the beginning of the Pleistocene. White rhinos have been around for a long time, but more specifically, the genus Ceratotherium. Hippos have been also existing since the late Pliocene epoch as well, but this is a different hippo species, a bit larger than the ones today in Africa, and they used to inhabit southern Europe during the Ice Age as well. You can find them as far north as France. And here are probably early relatives of today's zebras. Now, it is to mention that zebras are quite distantly related to horses. Now, they are within the same family, the Equidae or the horse family, but they're not necessarily very close relatives. But anyway, this individual, which is competing with the Ananchus for water, is Mammuthus mombialidus, which was 13 feet tall at the shoulder or pushing over 4 meters and could probably weigh over 12 tons. So, this is slightly larger than the Columbian mammoth over North America, which is possibly its descendant later on into the Pleistocene,
What's the largest current
as well as steppe mammoth, like current elephant today. Oh well, I thought you meant like just has been discovered. Okay, so possibly back in the 1940s over in Angola, there was an African bush elephant individual that reached somewhere around 13 feet tall at the shoulder. or 4 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 12 to 13 tons. So literally the size of this mammoth. But I don't know if that's been confirmed or not, and it's just based off, or it was just some exaggerated um, estimate based on uh, like the tusk size or however long the skin was. I'm not entirely sure, but that's all that I know. Anyway, let's.
No, currently, what is considered the largest elephant?
Well, if you're looking at the average size, when it comes to the African bush elephant over in Africa, they can reach around 8 tons. It's very rare, but it does occur and stand at about 11 feet. That's a really tall African bush elephant. Asian elephants don't usually reach 7 tons. That's a very big bull. But the Ananicus, the Ananicus gomphotheres, they were closely related to the mastodons, but they belong to the specifically a group of elephants called the Mammutidae lineage, and the mastodons belong to an entirely different family of elephants, despite them being closely related. Now, when looking at the tooth structure of the gomphotheres, it is somewhat similar to mastodons. It doesn't look like these animals were suited for grazing like the mammoths were. So, gomphotheres like Ananchus were likely feeding on different species of shrubs, maybe even likely different species of trees, but also going after different types of seeds and fruits, but probably never touching grass, not even when its main food sources were not available. It would simply just try to stay alive for as long as possible until it came into contact with other browsing material. When you look at the tooth structure of the gomphotheres, they tend to be quite rigid and also have a bit of like a cusp sort of look to them. So, not like a mammoth, which is very flat and smooth, only slightly rigid. So, um, let's keep going. According to the paleontologist, the specimen reveals details of anatomy that rarely preserve in the fossil record, including the auditory region of the skull, voice box, complete trachea, bones for focusing the eye, and the complete palate, allowing an unprecedented understanding of the sensory capabilities of terror birds. It does look like with the terror birds that they had a pretty good sense of smell. Not necessarily as great as today's vultures, but compared to most birds, it was pretty good, which would make sense considering these animals seem to be mostly meat eaters. The mean hearing estimated for this terror bird was below the average for living birds. Wow. Okay, this I'm not too familiar with. That is shocking. This seems to indicate that Llallawavis Scagliai may have had a narrow, low vocalization frequency range. Okay, well, this would make sense if um it's saying below. I'm thinking that its hearing was just bad in general. Um, Low frequency would make sense because I believe most birds today tend to be more of a mid frequency, so similar to humans, but still better. Presumably used for interspecific acoustic communication for or prey detection. Oh, that's it. Well, it's good to see. But this individual, I'm guessing he might be going after smaller prey items, and I'm not just talking about small species of rodents or even newborn fawns or calves, which is very likely depending on the season. He might be going after smaller species of gazelle, deer. He definitely has the terror birds in general, even the species with a more like a longer, narrow snout, were still capable of doing a lot of heavy bone damage to their prey. So he still would be quite a threat to anything smaller than him in the region or the same size. So let's take a look at another creature. So this animal is also less often talked about. This is actually the only species of prehistoric bear or ursid that has been discovered in Africa. And that's not including the now extinct Atlas brown bear species, which, well, subspecies which used to inhabit northern Africa and also a much larger part back when there was less of the Sahara Desert. But it went extinct back in the 1880s. Anyway, it was like a 400-pound brown bear. This creature is Agriotherium, which approaches Kodiak brown bear size. This animal could reach somewhere around 1,200 pounds, and was likely mostly herbivorous, so feeding on different species of fruits in the region. And looking at the dental structure of this bear, it was likely a grazer. So, feeding on different species of grasses, unlike with what you see in different brown bears over in North America or even Asia and Europe. It's likely feeding on more probably sustainable grasses than what modern herbivores are feeding on today in Africa. So this animal still likely would have scavenged, probably scare away certain hyenas or even smaller saber-toothed cats in the region. It existed in Africa about 4 million years ago during the Pliocene epoch. And for some reason, this individual simply just vanished, and at least so far is the only bear known to have lived in um, Ethiopia and South Africa. Now, they also have been found over in southern Europe as well, but it's the only bear to inhabit the sub-Saharan savanna regions. So, let me know what your favorite species of terror bird or in general Cenozoic animal is. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you love talking about animals, and share this show with everyone you know, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.